You guys, I struggled with how I was going to start this channel, but considering I have so much time invested in naval action over the years, the first one just had to be naval action. So without further ado, let's unpack some trauma. Today we're talking about naval action, the EVE Online of tall ships, but without the money and support you've got to build a proper economic model. With such a niche player base and a lack of advertising for the game, I think we should cook on what naval action was, a pinch of its rocky history, a dash about the developers, and wrap it all up with the ultimate question: what's going on with naval action in 2025? Spoiler alert, if you have played this game in the past, you probably won't be surprised. We set sail in 2015, a year of gaming giants, Fallout 4, The Witcher 3, Dying Light, and naval action in pre-alpha, but known then as Sea Trials. This was essentially a test bed for the sailing mechanics. No MMO, no economy, just you, a boat, and the enemy. The idea was simple: learn how to sail and fight. The problem, it wouldn't stay in this quick battle style format, and the rest would be a dumpster fire from here on out. Fast forward to January 2016, Naval Action enters Steam Early Access, this time as an MMO. Players now left port, ventured out into the open world, and tagged enemy ships to initiate combat, triggering a loading screen that still hasn't changed to this day. Even back then, players had issues with the core game loop. Open world sailing felt arcade-like, zooming around at Mach 20 speeds while constantly spinning your camera to scan the horizon for targets. But the real problem was the MMO layer, balancing the economy, port battle timers, permadeath mechanics, and crafting systems that got reworked into oblivion. Eventually moving on to RNGesus, which for the amount of time needed to gather materials to build a nice ship was almost always frustrating rather than rewarding. It peaked at 5,221 concurrent players on launch day and never reached those heights again. At one point, they brought back quick battles. You could enter into a queue in port in whatever boat you wanted to practice in and be launched into PvP. It was extremely popular for about a day, and it was mismanaged, buggy, and took forever to queue. They just removed it rather than fix it. Now, let's be clear, this was never going to be a massive game like Call of Duty or PUBG. But Naval Action hemorrhaged players because the developers consistently ignored feedback. Wipes, stat changes, unnecessary additions, broken mechanics, and worst of all, deleting of systems that players actually liked led to the game just losing players on the regular. The developers removed more features and mechanics than they would add some years, resulting in patches where we would just straight up lose content. And don't get me started on communication. Weeks or months would pass with no updates outside of the occasional forum post, and when updates did drop, they were either half-cooked, broken, or outright harmful to the game. After an only ship wipe in mid-2017 and the merger of two PvP servers into one global server later that year, in 2019, players on the war server would wake up to find everything wiped. Tens of thousands of hours of progress gone. And the reason? Pre-release wipe, with a guarantee that it would not be wiped again for at least 18 months. The update wasn't even groundbreaking. It was convoluted, relying on mechanics suited for a player count the game would never achieve. By this point, Naval Action had become synonymous with mismanagement, and an outright middle finger to the very passionate player base should have been their logo. Just something to think about, players of niche game genres tend to be considerably more invested than players of a mainstream game, and as a result are much harder to please. But not pleasing anybody is not the correct answer either. The final nail in the coffin for me was developer broken promises. For years, players were promised that top-tier ships, first to third rates, would never be sold as DLC. They could only be built using rare in-game materials and gameplay work. Until 2020, when alongside yet another wipe, the Implacable and Victory DLC ships were released. For $50 fucking. In a game where losing a ship means losing it permanently, these DLC ships, redeemable daily with no resource cost, became impossible to ignore. This was blatant pay to win, and hilariously, it was also against Steam's guidelines. To make matters worse, they tried introducing a ship painter DLC before bugs were squashed and mechanics refined, and a hot air balloon for fast travel. Yeah, you heard that right, a hot air balloon, because of course in the 1700s, in the Caribbean, everyone had one of those lying around, and we were not already spending enough time looking at the quickly visually outdated map. When their biggest argument for why not to do things was historical accuracy, this was a smack in the face. For the record, the first balloon to carry people was in Paris, France, on November 21st, of 1783, smack in the middle of Naval Action's so-called historically accurate game. Outside of just ships, they also added what was called the Navy Connection and Admiralty Connection, which offered more tow permits, outpost slots, warehouse space, etc., which for this game clearly equated to pay to win, as these things are huge legs up when it comes to crafting and general freedom to generate wealth and resources to build proper PvP ships. At this point for me, Naval Action was a sinking ship, pun fully intended. Players left in droves as every patch seemed to break more than it fixed. I finally quit in 2021. I felt like the devs were stern ranking us for money, and I was exhausted from not feeling like I was being heard and wasting all of my time building for it to be taken away from me. So I jumped ship, and thank God, because if I had been playing for the last 4 years, all of that would be gone today. Then February 2025 happened and things started to shake up. Naval Action is now owned by Bermuda Computer Club, a new company working on another sailing game called Sea Legends. We'll touch on that on another video. Upon investigating, I recognized some of the original developers from Game Labs, and get this, they're actually doing updates. On February 25th, they shut down the old war server. Now only 2 servers remain, the Peace server and the Caribbean server, or the new PvP server, which of course will be wiped, and was wiped on the 10th of February. It is not clear whether these servers will be wiped seasonally or not. Since March 2nd, they've been pushing daily test server updates, bug fixes, mechanics tweaks, economy changes, and ship balancing. I'm not going to go over every patch note, but I have to admit that I was surprised they existed at all. They claim they're overhauling the entire game, doing the damage models and the sailing mechanics, crafting, trade, economy, everything. The most eyebrow-raising change is players now have to craft cannonballs and powder, or at least purchase it. Are you fucking kidding me? One more grind just to have fun. Par for the developer's course. I know no one asked for this, and I have not been playing for 4 years, but I know nobody asked for this. I'm going to keep beating this dead horse here, so I'll put up the Naval Action Steam page. You can go take a look in the description, and I'll have all their patch notes. I'm not breaking that down here. Now, I'm not going to have this video to beat down on the developers. I've been doing that for years, so I'm going to highlight the positives of this game. I will always play devil's advocate against myself and find the positive in every topic I'll talk about on this channel, so here are the positives. The sailing mechanics are phenomenal. Manual sailing, wind dynamics, combat positioning, made for an actual skill-based experience that I still believe to this day is unmatched. And if you are aware of another game that matches or equals this, please let me know in the comments below. Port battles were exhilarating. Proper line sailing, strategy, and precision broadside volleys were the chef's kiss. You had to be skilled and communicate well with your team, plan well, and execute well. And while it was a mechanic designed around the MMO portion of the game, it was only way we could have relatively even large-scale battles. Let me tell you, when it worked right, it really worked. Especially back in the day when we had screening fleets and there would be 8 to 7 battles outside the actual port battle experience. Then there's the PvP. Only in Escape from Tarkov have I ever been so emotional about wins and losses. Losses hurt and wins feel amazing. I spent hours sailing in the open world hunting for PvP or setting 2 a.m. alarms to take part in port battles. Sometimes it took forever to find a good fight, but when you did, it was amazing. And you stopped finding yourself at the end of a gank fest, it was fantastic. The ships look amazing. Even now, I enjoy the amount of work placed into ship design. As old as this game is, the boats still look good. And while it lacks in other areas graphically, it 100% shines here. And lastly, and while I'm not a fan of trading can be rewarding for those that enjoy just sailing with a cargo full of goods. But considering how much AFK sailing you have to do to get to the combat portion of the game, I don't really think that I can buy into that. Debates about the economy are ever lively on the forums and on Discord. So I'm not going to get into how trading may be good or bad in this game, as I don't trade and I haven't traded for some time.
And that's it. That's all we got for the positives. It sucks.
Yes, its MMO ambitions, developer missteps, and sheer lack of direction held this game back. And from what I'm seeing in Discord, it looks like the same developers are behind this buyout and new revival of the game. But hey, Who knows? With daily testing and full revamp in progress, maybe, just maybe, Naval Action will finally become the game we wanted a decade ago. But what's worse, I still have hope. Damn it! I sincerely hope that those that still enjoy this game do not fall victim to Game Lab's past with these upcoming changes, and that the Bermuda Computer Club can highlight their strengths, put their ego aside on their weaknesses, and seriously put in some effort to gain back our trust, because I know for a fact that we would come back in a healthy way. On February 10th of this year, 2025, Naval Action applied all of its changes to the live servers that had been running on the test server and wiped both the PvE and PvP servers. Now, while the P server took another 24 hours to come online, PvP opened about 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and man, was it a sight to see thousands of people online and all in the same area. The game peaked at just over 1,100 players, the most it has seen on one time in many years. I was excited finally Naval Action was going to be good again. I was stoked. And for about the first hour, then reality set in. It's even more of a grind now, and I'm actively still trying to get into a combat ship as I'm writing this, sailing endlessly between ports to trade to try to scrape some silvers together to buy a combat ship. And I'm going to assume that most of you are still in this mode as well. I can't even tell you about the combat yet because I have to try it still. I have to grind to get there. But here are some of the cliff notes from my first few hours in this game. Fishing is gone. Temporary warehouses at ports you do not have an outpost in? Gone. Starting out with free combat ship for those that hate trading? Gone. DLC ships access to tiered woods? Gone. Bottles to find shipwrecks? Gone. Ports and portions of the map? Gone. And while that might be a good thing, it is one more example of things just being removed rather than added or updated. And I'm not even going to touch on the ammo and powder requirements, something that apparently that will be easier when player crafting comes online and the server builds up, but currently it's bricked as fuck for the new player and even the returning one. And I'm going to go on a rant here. I do not want to sail for hours just to see fucking combat. I do not want more of a grind. And a grind again because this is my 5th time starting a new character. All you kept was your experience, whoop-de-fucking-do, and it's been nearly a decade and we're still wiping and removing things instead of putting thought into how we can make it better. And what's worse is I spoke to the devs and let them know I was making this video before release. I asked what they saw for the future of Naval Action and how it would be managed differently from previous years. And what I got was a convoluted answer that amounted to check out Sea Legends for the best in-class single-player experience and wait till this patch rolls out, judge the reaction of the community, and then your video will be just in time. What the fuck? I am not in the least surprised by this response, but I can say I did do my due diligence and reached out for a proper comment. Now, I really don't want to bash this game into the ground for the next 10 minutes. But I've completely lost hope for the health of this game. Here's the thing. I'm absolutely okay with being wrong. And if I am, then I will issue a formal apology in the form of a video to the community and the developers. But from where I'm sailing right now, we will be playing Naval Action until other games come out. And I can't wait to cover those games on this channel next because I know they're going to be absolute fire.
Look, like I said, the beginning of this game is absolutely impossible for a new player to want to be engaged with. There's no possible way that with the current mechanics that it will retain any kind of new player base. And if they're trying to sell DLC, well, all the DLCs we already bought are rendered useless thanks to the wood tier changes. So what are we left with? At the end of the day, we've got the same game with the same devs and the same problems, just with more grind and still more hope because Ahoy is not out yet. This is your Quartermaster Molder. We're going to drop anchor. Thanks for watching. I was actively doing an audio pass when I noticed this. New DLC, Galleon. For $40 fucking dollars. Jesus Christ, it's like they're trying to prove my point for me.